Right then, pull up a chair, grab a pint or a cup of tea if you're feeling proper, because today's tale is quieter than most, but no less thunderous in its impact. We're diving into a protest so silent it shook the streets of New York, the silent parade of 1917. Picture this. It's July 28th, 1917. The world's in the middle of World War I. The Harlem Renaissance is still tuning up its jazz, and civil rights for black Americans are, well, let's say, not exactly flourishing. But instead of riots, instead of speeches, instead of fire and brimstone, 10,000 black men, women and children gather in their Sunday best and march silently down Fifth Avenue. No chants, no bullhorns, just quiet grief and a whole lot of dignity. It's the kind of silence that makes your spine shiver. So what pushed these folks to take to the streets in such ghostly defiance? Let's rewind the reel, shall we? Before the hush of New York, there was the hell of East Street, Louis. Now, if you think America in 1917 was a melting pot, well, it was more like a pressure cooker with a broken valve. The Great Migration had African Americans fleeing the Jim Crow South faster than rats off a sinking ship. They landed in industrial towns looking for work and found white mobs instead. In East Street, Louis, Illinois, labor tensions turned bloody. White workers, scared black migrants would undercut their wages, freaked out. What followed wasn't just a riot, it was a massacre. We're talking homes set ablaze, people lynched in broad daylight, and the police either turned a blind eye or joined the party. Estimates say 40 to 200 African Americans were killed. Think about that next time someone calls it the good old days. The NAACP saw the blood-soaked writing on the wall and decided it was time to speak up by shutting up. Now, protests in those days were more likely to involve torches and pitchforks than quiet dignity. But the NAACP had a vision. Led by James Weldon Johnson, W.E.B. Du Bois, and other sharp minds, they asked, what if we didn't shout? What if we marched silently? It was bloody brilliant. On July 28, 1917, around 10,000 African Americans, some estimates say 15,000, dressed in black, gathered on 57th Street and silently made their way down Fifth Avenue. Children led the way. Women followed. Men brought up the rear. No songs. No speeches. Just the slow, mournful thump of muffled drums. People watching from the sidewalks, stunned. By the way, get this. Here's your lesser-known fact. Children carried signs that read things like, "Mothers, do lynchers go to heaven?" Talk about packing a punch without raising your voice. So why the silence? Because shouting had gotten them nowhere. Silence, in contrast, was haunting. Imagine the most bustling, noise-polluted avenue in New York. Then imagine it being overtaken by thousands of silent, mourning bodies. It was eerie. It was powerful. It made folks stop chewing their hot dogs and actually look. The sign said it all. Your hands are full of blood. We have fought for the liberty of white Americans in 6 wars. Mr. President, why not make America safe for democracy? That last one, a direct jab at Woodrow Wilson, who was busy sending boys to die for freedom in Europe while freedom was being trampled back home. Newspapers across the country took notice. Some called it dignified, others said it was pointless. And Woodrow Wilson? Crickets. The same guy who ran on the platform of racial harmony suddenly forgot how to answer mail. A delegation of black leaders handed over a list of demands, including anti-lynching legislation and equal protection under the law. Spoiler, Wilson did absolutely bugger all. But let's not confuse silence with surrender. This wasn't about short-term wins. It was about planting a seed. The silent parade didn't change laws overnight, but it did change strategy. It was the first mass African-American protest of its kind in the US, a precursor to the March on Washington, the Selma marches, and even the Black Lives Matter demonstrations today. It showed the world that silence could be louder than bombs, that dignity could be a weapon, that unity, even in grief, was a force to be reckoned with. Dr. King, Rosa Parks, John Lewis, all spiritual heirs to those 10,000 marchers in 1917. And if you think this is all old news, remember George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the countless others? The echoes of that parade are still walking among us. Let's pause and give 'tis a think. Was silence the right move? On one hand, silence strips away excuses. You can't claim it was violent protesters when nobody says a word. It exposes the system's cruelty with almost surgical precision. That's moral clarity. On the other hand, silence risks being misread as submission. It relies on others to listen, and in 1917 most didn't. But it was done with purpose. It was a calculated risk by a people who tried everything else. And they did it not for clout, not for headlines, but for the soul of a country that refused to see theirs. So what do we take from the silent parade? That silence, when wielded wisely, can be deafening. That dignity can be a revolution. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not raise your voice, but hold your head high while the world tries to keep you low. So next time you're marching for change, or even just scrolling through activism hashtags, remember those 10,000 folks in black on Fifth Avenue. They weren't shouting, but they damn sure were heard. Stay curious, stay sharp, and stay just sober enough to remember it all. This was just a swig of history, and if it wasn't in your textbook, it bloody well should have been. And before you go, do a brother Favre and like, share and subscribe.